Welcome into another edition of the Braves Central Podcast. I'm Barrett Sallee. He's Chris Dimino, and this is a podcast that we want you to share, like, write a note, leave a review, all of that stuff. We want to know what we're doing right and what we need to improve on, because that's always something we want to do. We want to strive to be the best Braves podcast out there on these interwebs. Mr. Dimino, it's actually a happy episode this Friday because Thursday night felt normal. Thursday night felt great. Our stars played the way they're supposed to play. The pitching was phenomenal. Chris Sale set records. I'm not going to say this is the jumping off point to a run because we've said that about 6, 7, 8 times this year already. But it was nice to see our big time players step up in a huge situation. And yes, the back end of a doubleheader on May 29th just so happened to be huge, at least for this team.
Yeah, so the headliner, top of the bill, it went the Braves' way. Our guy was better than their guy. Our really good guy was better than their really good guy last night. It was nice to see Zach Wheeler get hit around a little bit because Braves don't do that very often to him. And finally winning the game up in Philadelphia certainly makes this morning a little bit better. Everybody could have done the math as how bad it would have been if the standings mattered to you before we get to June 1st. But I think worse than the standings would have been the idea that you had a chance to make up ground on one of the ones in front of you. You would have had a chance to slow them down. They won 9 in a row, won 9 out of 10, and you didn't want them to start the streak at your behest, winning 3 in a row. You know, Chris Sale went out and did his job, and he's been phenomenal lately. I mean, I guess we'll talk about some of the other stuff. How many guys are visiting a doctor of some sort this morning, if not last night? It was infirmary time. And the Nick Allen one is the one that sort of, but Fairchild is not going to be able to hold a bat. If that pinky, unless it was literally just a dislocation and it was a pop back in, but he already had the splint on. So he could have.
He looked like a football player. He looked like an offensive lineman that had just all his fingers going in different directions.
Yeah, well,
it was terrible.
He certainly had one of them, going east-west as opposed to north-south. So he can't grab a bat, so you're going to have to do something about that because you're just not going to keep him on the bench to be a runner. He could have been a runner last night. Everybody did say that. But the Smith-Shawver one's the big one, but the Nick Allen one is going to be interesting as well. I don't know what that was or what it might have been because Luke Williams, Eli White at shortstop is not what necessarily the doctor ordered at this point or any point over the course of the season. And I brought up Tim Anderson yesterday just to explain that for the last 3 years, Tim Anderson has been Nick Allen offensively. It's incredible. His drop-off is one of the all-timers at 32 years old. That was a guy like Team USA was clamoring to get his leadership and everything else, and obviously his talent. He's just been Nick Allen offensively for close to 3 seasons. You know, we did that 3-season box. If you don't know, Tim Anderson was released. He was released by the Angels, I believe.
Angels.
Yeah.
Yep.
So think of it like the Brady Bunch, the very beginning. Here's a story, tic-tac-toe. I got 9 boxes. His last 3 seasons slash line, which is 3 things, all started with a 2. Like, that's impossible.
It's not good.
That's impossible at 30, 31, 32 when you were a Silver Slugger winner, you were an All-Star, you were a Team USA guy, you were all those things. But if Nick Allen, and I don't know if you heard anything that I didn't, you did the postgame last night, is there any further word on Nick Allen, or was that just one of those where he got a bump and he's going to be able to go as early as today?
They will further evaluate him. Okay. The best phrase a trainer can have is like, we're not going to go in on something we can't go. But you're right. I think, yes, and Tim Anderson was the name that popped up, I think, in everybody's head because Luke Williams, nobody wants him to be our shortstop. That's not against Luke. He's going to be a speed guy, especially with Stuart Fairchild out, and he's a versatile player, but you're going to have to look around. And yes, you mentioned that Tim Anderson has been horrible at the plate, but it's not like Nick Allen was a world beater. So I ask you this, would you sign Anderson for his defense with the hopes that he comes anywhere close to what he used to be, or Nick Allen?
I'm only signing him if he's playing. Am I going to send Luke Williams away? I don't know if Nick Allen's going to be down. I don't even want to go down this, but I'm sure there was an X-ray last night if he said, "Oh, I can't move this finger or that finger." That's the universal. If you can't move a finger, what does everybody say? There might be a bone broken somewhere in your hand.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if that happened or not. I do know he had to be taken out of a baseball game. And again, I'm not necessarily overly concerned with a guy who's a pretty good defender who hits 9th for me. We're not in a position to actually not be good at certain positions on certain nights. It's nice if the bottom of your lineup helps you out, but I don't know what his one's going to be. The Smith-Shawver one is everybody seems to be in line with, that's not good. And for a guy who was establishing himself, who was a back end of a rotation guy, who certainly, and we talked about a pregame, his, I don't want to call them highs, his good enoughs are good enough to be a 5 on a major league level, especially if you're grooming him by giving him starts to maybe look like a 3 or a 4 in the next couple of years. I love the idea that at the back end of the rotation, he didn't want himself. He looked like a guy that was going to give you enough outings to keep you in games where he was going to get the experience, and a little less to be determined, or an incomplete would have happened if he had stayed healthy this year and he held on to the job. It doesn't look, feel, or smell like that's going to be the situation going forward with him.
Yeah, I think we all sort of knew what was coming when he said elbow stiffness and MRI, and saw what he did in replay anyway. Yeah, pop. And really the replay, because I don't know about you, but watching that, I think, and a lot of folks, I think that's why Snit didn't see it initially. We're looking at his push-off leg and not necessarily his arm, thinking, okay, can he do this?
Listen, I saw that we got a couch outside, and I got the game on, and I just blurted out, he's hurt. I just saw the universal shake. I saw him shake his arm. And I said, okay, that's either I don't have a feeling in my fingertips or whatever it was. Then if you really look at it, it's funny because I told somebody last night, because I had the game recorded at the house, he looked like he was in shock. Like, it looked like one of those moments where you tell somebody they're bleeding. And you go, what do you mean I'm bleeding? Yeah, you're bleeding. And all of a sudden you have that look on your face like, what the hell is going on here?
Oh, no.
He's a 22-year-old guy who's got his whole future ahead of him. He's seen guys, saw it firsthand in Spencer Strider, that you're one pitch away, but it doesn't mean it's any easier to digest at that moment. It's just not, because whether your career flashes before your eyes, whatever it might be, you know that somebody's now walking out towards you, and you have to use a 3-letter word, pop, and not only is that the quick exit off the mound, that was a quick exit to get him to the airport and get him on a plane. Mm-hmm. So that's the reality for him now. More news, I'm sure, at some point pregame today.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Now, wrapping up the shortstop issue, I think some people might say, hey, look, let's go to the minor leagues. David Fletcher's there. He's batting 168. Edie's Leonard actually is hitting second. He's got 9 home runs and 20 RBI, but he's also batting 213. So I don't think you're going to have an answer there.
What's really funny is Orlando Arcia. I wonder if he's like, I want a do-over. Now, look, I don't know if he would have played here if Nick Allen's gone for the weekend, or if it's maybe a little bit longer than that. Again, that's one of two things. If you get a bone bruise, if it's not on your wrist, if it's the back of your hand, it's not great, but it's better than your fingers, and it's better than your wrist itself. He looked like he had a pad on his batting glove. I think he had one of those little bar pads on there.
Yeah.
So maybe it's going to be next to nothing other than, I went to medical school. I didn't. I went to chiropractic school. Contusion, I believe, is sometimes what it's called. But if that's what it is, maybe it's just a couple of day thing. But I bet your Orlando Arcia is like in Colorado going, wait, would I have played? I don't know if you would have played.
The answer is yes.
I don't believe me. I saw Luke Williams play before him, and I knew Eli White was taking ground balls before Orlando Arcia was sent away. So I don't know if he would have. But it is it's just sort of buzzard's luck that we might be thinking about what are we going to do for at least a couple of days at shortstop possibly.
And with AJ, I think this hasn't become official, but I think everybody sort of expects, hey, Bryce Elder's going to get the call. They might have to do some jockeying for position in terms of how he fits in based on his rest. But at some point, he's going to be AJ Smith-Shawver's replacement in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you have a spot starter come in just to sort of balance out the rotation. But Bryce has had a good year. So I think 3 months ago, all of us would have said, hey, the world's falling, this is not going to work. Now I think there's a little bit of hope in terms of Bryce actually being a pretty good fifth starter. Now moving forward with the Red Sox, we saw them a couple weeks ago. We actually got the same pitching matchup that we get tonight, Grant Holmes versus Lucas Giolito. And they don't have Alex Bregman, which I think is different because we saw them break out against us. Rafael Devers, that game with Holmes and Giolito is actually the Rafael Devers walk-off grand slam game. But Marcelo Mayer is there, and he's their top prospect. He's their guy that had all the fanfare when he came up. He's played okay. He's got 10 at-bats. He's got 19 at-bats, 5 hits. So he's not blinded by the lights of the big league stadium. It's going to be fun to see him. He's played shortstop for them, and now he moved over to third. I think he bounces around to both positions, and so he's a different sort of animal. There's not a book on him. So the pitchers are going to have to watch out a little bit, but it's not Bregman, which I think for the Braves, that's always a plus. And this is sort of the same Boston team that we talked about a couple weeks ago, where now they're sitting there at 27-31. They were dancing around 500 when we played them a couple weeks ago. They've actually kind of gone the similar path as the Braves, now trying to get back to that 500 point. So it's a hurting team. This is a team that is there right for the picking. And so if the Braves can take 2 of 3 from a team that's essentially a mirror image of itself, then that'll be a solid point moving forward to maybe at least get to be something close to a competitor for a wild card spot.
Yeah, I'd like to see a couple of things just quickly. I think Devers might have 30 RBI this month. And, should he have played first? Should they put him at third now? Should they tell him to shut up, pick up your glove, and you're going to go where we're going to tell you because that's what it says on the lineup card? I don't know. He started hitting all of a sudden, and, it was after that meeting where the brass flew out, and I'm sure a very private plane to go talk to him about whatever I don't know, whatever, being a bad teammate. If my headline would have been, we got to go out there to talk to him because he's a bad teammate, but he's got 30 RBI in a month, so maybe you just want to leave him alone at this point. I'll do a little bit of the quick math, but I think it might be 30 RBI for him this month, so he comes in certainly as a better player. The other part about all of this is I'd like to see maybe, just once, like a right fielder, a guy who's used to the wall in Fenway, which is small with the bullpen right there. Keep an eye on it. We say it all the time when you go to Coors. You got to watch your outfield defense. You say it when you go to Fenway. You got to watch your outfield defense. If you've never played in front of the wall, if you haven't played center field, who backs up what? Right field sort of creates a little bit of a problem for people around here because it's sort of like Fenway in the sense that if I don't have a play, do I just back up away from a brick wall and try to play it on the bounce, or do you have to remind your second baseman, which you do, you've got to get over there because if he's close to below the chop or whatever we call that place these days, that ball is going to come back and somebody's got to go get it because the right fielder won't. Maybe we see something that happens to them over the course of the weekend. This field is pretty, I don't want to call it symmetrical. It's not Turner Field, which was basically blah, bland, and everything else.
Yeah.
Right field gives you a little bit of a play here. And I also know this. The reputation of this building, it's left-hand hitter friendly. Then they built a second building. It's an Omni Hotel here. They said sort of the wind current changed a little bit, and it wasn't as easy maybe to pop it out. But we have seen that if you get one up in certain pockets going to right field, there's a chance that somebody will hit a home run from Boston tonight and pimp, or at some point over the weekend. Because when you hit something into a crowded area like the Chop House, I do think it's kind of cool. And I think even players think it's kind of cool. Just make sure it's a home run. Because remember, if it hits the wall and you're standing on first base, people are going to have a problem with you.
And it's going to be a controversy all over the place in social media, like we saw. I mean, you mentioned right field. It's not Fenway in terms of the Green Monster, where there are all kinds of angles and ladders and things like that. But the Braves right field at Truist Park, there are some little parts that you can send the ball in different ways when it hits off that wall. So the Red Sox are used to that in terms of their infielders cutting off. I'm not sure they can do that in right field. But you mentioned Devers. I'm old enough to remember, Chris, when he struck out 40 times in 10 at-bats to start the season. Yeah. He's batting .287 with 12 home runs and 50 RBI right now. Yeah, his OPS is .932.
And again, I'm sure you have his May numbers there, and I think it's the second time he might have had a 30 RBI in a month. I know why they gave him a big contract. They're sort of underachieving around him, or he's not helping them overachieve for sure. As you said, sitting below 500 and just trying to scrape and get there. I think my point about the right field thing is I'll take anything at this point. Seriously, I'll take anything. If a guy misplays a ball in the outfield in right field, or if a guy pimps and he thinks he has a home run, but he finds himself standing on first, not on second, I'll take all the help we can get at this point. I want to go back to something about Chris Sale. The big number on him was obviously the fastest 2,500 strikeouts. And the reason that means something, with all due respect to the fastest to 100 or 500 or 750, 2,500 means you keep showing up. And remember, this guy had a few bad years. I'm going to do something I don't do very often, and I'm not telling you I watch this guy. I watched in 2018 because Boston is a team that you want to watch. So if they go to the playoffs and they go to the World Series, you watch him. This guy is a horse. Like, he's got dude in him. I don't think I appreciated maybe what he was except for the World Series year because the fall off was so big. And it's not just because he won a Cy Young Award here. That was an extra added bonus to see it in person. But had he won a Cy Young Award back up in Boston, had he won it someplace else, I probably would have looked and said, man, that guy came back from that crap. from, there weren't injuries. It was just crap. Like he had just bad luck. And all of a sudden, instead of sulking, instead of moaning, he basically apologizes to a city for stealing the money and not giving them what although again, he gets applause up there because they won a World Series, and he's on the mound to start a World Series, and he's on the mound to finish a World Series, and he's rare in that capacity. Throw the 2,500 strikeouts in, throw the Triple Crown thing in. I think he's got a Gold Glove. So at the end of the day, that guy is a dude. I appreciated John Lester more because it was both Boston and Chicago. But if Chris Sale gets a chance, and what really bothers me, the Austin Riley not getting out of the cast in time, that stunk. That's Buzzard's luck. Would you have been a better playoff team? Yeah, there's a good chance. But Chris Sale not appearing in the postseason after last year was the real kick in the nuts for me. For everything else that happened during the year, like there wasn't a bigger take this, and I mean take this, like a good hard kick when he couldn't actually go at all in the postseason last year.
It was the cherry on top of an injury-riddled season. There's no doubt about that. And you're right. What was interesting about Chris Sale yesterday in his post-game comments is, he's always about the team, giving the team a chance to win. And he was asked about the record multiple times. And I think it was Justin Toscano of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution who finally got him to say, hey, look, you beat Randy Johnson. And those two guys are very similar with their body structure, the way they pitch. And he kind of sat back and was like, okay, yeah, that was kind of cool. Yeah. That was kind of cool to be mentioned in the same breath as Randy Johnson, much less beat him to such a prestigious mark. So
I can also tell you that last game he pitched on a Friday that they lost up there, that was a hell of an outing. Mm-hmm. That guy didn't give a rip because the team didn't win. And I believe some guys are sort of phony when it comes to that. I don't think he's phony. His job is he was in studio with us. His job is to win a baseball game for his team. The 1A to that, and probably with him it's 2, it's give my team a chance to win a baseball game that I start. But it's sort of objects are pretty back in the rearview mirror. He believes his job is to be the reason you win a baseball game. Not to be a me guy, but he sort of, I think, really kicks himself in the ass if he's not the reason that this team or any team that he's pitched on has won a baseball game. That makes him a little bit different in my opinion.
100%. It's good to have him on the roster. Good to have him on this team. And it was great to see him come up big in a huge spot in game 2 of the doubleheader against Philadelphia yesterday. So, Chris, it'll be a fun weekend. When Boston comes into town, we can expect a fun crowd, a crowd that unfortunately we'll have a few Red Sox fans, but that's okay. You like that energy. It's fun to have that energy in the ballpark. And, I think the Braves right now, any energy they can get and build off of after last night is good. So we'll see if we can take 2 or 3 from the Red Sox, and can't wait to see this matchup tonight.
I know what kind of weekend it's going to be. Ask me how I know.
How do you know?
It was a 2 beer truck day yesterday. Right here in the Battery.
Yes, it was.
If you don't know, our studio and all this stuff is right across the street from the ballpark. And I judge how, what they believe the drinking crowd is going to be by how many beer trucks I see on Thursday. Yesterday was a 2 beer truck day.
There was a beer truck outside when I left last night.
Yeah, and that was the late night edition where they just said, we better get a little bit more. Those Boston people are drunks. A lot of Irish. Ask me why I'm allowed to say that.
Because how are you allowed to say that?
I'm half Irish.
That is true.
I'm allowed to say whatever I want about the Irish.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. Get on down to the ballpark if you're around for Friday night's game.
Real quick.
And let's have some fun.
I walked in the studio today. There was just random baseball cards here. Yeah. But there's a little bit of a theme in here, and I'll tell you what it is real quick. Jerry Remy, second baseman for the Boston Red Sox.
Okay.
Long time. Boston fans love them, some Jerry Remy. Alan Ripley. Yeah, there was a guy named Alan Ripley. He was a pitcher for the Red Sox. I don't know why that's in here. Glenn Hoffman. I know some stuff about him and Remy. He was a Red Sox third baseman for a while. And there was another one, Bob Montgomery, who was a catcher. My guess is, I'm going to look at the back of this card. You've never heard of Bob Montgomery, and I'm not telling you should have.
No, I have not.
Yeah. How many home runs do you think Bob Montgomery had between 1970 and 1979? This is a Topps 1980 card. He's a catcher for the Boston Red Sox. I'll give him credit.
For the Red
Sox.
He
was up with the big league club at some point between 1970 and 79. That man did a decade in the bigs. How many home runs do you think Bob Montgomery hit?
17.
23 home runs for Bob Montgomery. Man got
do I win? The Price is Right rules?
No. Well, yeah, you at least didn't go over. That's good. But I think I gave you a hint just by asking the question. You were not going to say 108.
We need to find out where they came from because they weren't mine. Mine are already somewhere in LA getting graded that I sent.
Yeah,
out
no,
there.
you don't grade Bob Montgomery 19.
No, that's not
I
necessary.
can tell you that. He had
That is not
156
necessary.
sticks, though.
Good for him.
Looks like he could have been a smoker. It was a 70.
I would
Butch
imagine.
Hobson, another third baseman, Butch Hobson. I don't know why they're here, but they were here, and there were 4 or 5 Red Sox in there. So
we're going to find out.
Somebody might have brought him in there because the big series coming up. By the way, my goal tonight is to bring up Bob Montgomery. At least one point this weekend, I want to slide a Bob Montgomery reference in without it being like, Bob Montgomery,
Forced.
he wasn't very good. I'm going to find a reason.
You can't force it.
Yeah, right. I'm going to find a real reason to just play a Bob Montgomery card at some point over the course of the weekend.
All right, well, look out for that, whether it be on the Ford Leadoff Show or 680 Game Day or wherever else you hear us. And, of course, you can hear us for Leadoff Show, 6 o'clock on Friday night, first pitch between the Braves and Red Sox. Lucas Giolito and Grant Holmes coming your way at 7:15 across the Braves radio network. He's Chris Dimino. I'm Barrett Sallee. This has been the Braves Central podcast. Don't forget to give it a review, like it, share it, all that stuff. And we will talk to you in this form, in the podcast form, on Monday.